You used this word gatekeeper the other day, and I think it's worth just giving it some definition, just what a gatekeeper is, because they're everywhere now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a thing is that gatekeeper is an often misunderstood term because uh, people, when they hear the word, they think, oh, this person doesn't allow any true information to get out. But that's not how a good disinfo or misinfo troll works. The way that these bugs work is that they give tremendous amounts of subversive information. They give tremendous amounts of accurate information, which is like insider information. But then on certain key critical issues, they give bad information or they tell people don't look there. So,
Yeah.
famous example would be Noam Chomsky, who, I mean, with in collaboration with other people, did a pretty good work on how consent is manufactured, called manufacturing consent. And of course, it shows the relationship between the military-industrial complex and the media and Hollywood and journalists and how consent is manufactured. It's relatively accurate portrayal. But then when looking at some of the big hoaxes or false flags, it says, oh, don't look there, or when they talk about the Federal Reserve, he seems to not even understand how the Federal Reserve operates, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think it's the real thing. I don't think anybody can be the real thing and have any real
Yeah,
following.
that's
You're just going to lose your family, your friends, and be very isolated, and that will be imposed upon you wherever you go. Weird to bring this up, but there's this fellow called Osho. He was like a hippie guru type about
yes,
20 years ago. He got set up and they put him in jail for 10 days and then he died soon afterwards. And he said maybe they did something to me in jail, which is likely. He was only 60. But, he just ended up all alone in the mountains in the north of India. That's how I imagine it. But I don't know. I mean, they're just vindictive to shut people up.
right,
You can't have a following without playing the ball
right,
and
and
gatekeeping somewhat.
yeah, and the gatekeeping. The thing is that it's a classic confidence scam. A con scam where you build the people's trust. By uh, exposing so much that you think the person's totally transparent. And then the followers, they build this trust, and because of human psychology and anthropology, the way we build trust, we experience a cognitive dissonance. We experience this cognitive dissonance when we're confronted with the fact that these people are now lying to us, the very people that we trust.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, from the beginning of this topic, the big issue is you just keep Israel out of the news. In all the conflicts everywhere, Israel shouldn't get a mention. And that's a perfect gatekeeping example.
Right,
It's Russia, it's America, it's Britain, it's France, and you just never mention Israel. And,
right,
say no more.
right. I mean, when you look at it, it's the U.S. foreign policy is actually completely incoherent if you don't factor in the Israel angle. I mean, there's really nothing that they're doing that makes sense, because you would think the U.S. would be doing their thing in Latin America because they're right there, or they would be focusing on, integrating Canada and Mexico and all the things that, people have concerns about, but that take place in North and South America. But instead, they're way over, in the Black Sea region and in the Middle East, and it's there's not like an economic connection. I mean, we talked about before, and you're right. The Ron Paul Institute was saying that there's a total trade of 400 or 500 billion between Europe and Russia. It's less than 30 billion. It's 27 billion between the U.S. and Russia, whereas with the EU and Russia, that is to say, it's 400 or 500 billion. So what are they doing in Ukraine? It doesn't, I mean, the perks like, you've got so-and-so's son is going to co-manage a gas company and, talking about Biden. That's just a
Yeah.
perk. I mean, that's not the real issue. It doesn't make
It's
sense.
not the real. It's just arrogance, really. I'm afraid there's a secret plan on Earth. I mean, America's been at war for 40 years, for thousands of miles away from its shores, and I have my own take on this, my own theory, which is basically it's about spreading multiculturalism, that every nation on earth will resemble America. And that's why I think they want to send troops to Africa to send them off as refugees. And I think it's most likely Talmudic in origin. But, this is my own personal take on it. But it does explain all the conflicts.
Yeah, the most important thing with in the social sciences, and it's different from the physical sciences. In the physical sciences, we can mix two compounds and then you can reproduce it. In the social sciences, it's a soft science, but the theory or the hypothesis that that one of the main power groups is say Zionist or say one might say Jewish. If it explains all of the facts, and then it is a viable theory. And so unless one can give facts which cannot be explained by that theory, then the theory holds. There are numerous theories like this or related to that. I'm not in the position to dispute it. I think it's actually been said. If you want to know who holds power, look at who you can't criticize. And I'm in the precarious situation, Morris, where I can't disagree with you, but because of my own background, not being, of the tribe, so to speak, I'm not free to say what you say. But
well, I was sort of fraudulently inducted into the tribe. On discovering the truth, I've been misjudged, and I'm allowed to get away with a bit more, it seems, but who knows?
Right.
I get punished. They're a rather vindictive lot, and they have tentacles everywhere.
Yes, it's it explains. It certainly explains a lot. When I deal and look at history and deal in politics, one of my main concerns when looking at, say, the issue of Jewish power is that there are, and I know from a firsthand experience, I know that anecdotes are not the most convincing. One can also look at statistics. At the same time that Jews in power have disproportionate amount of power, there are still large numbers of disempowered Jews who don't have a lot of power.
Yeah, they're fodder or fanatics.
Sure, right. There's fodder, and I guess as a human being and from a human perspective, what I've seen in history is that Jewish elites will use, Jewish fodder to take the blame or to take the brunt or to, be marched into the camps if they existed or not, but, to basically take the rap, and, I think, for example, when you look at the Holocaust or something, I don't think that any of the Jews who had power were placed into situations where they were victimized in that scenario. And
I don't know, but you've made me think of there's a very high homicide rate in Israel. There are plenty of Jews killing other Jews.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the outright murder, sometimes it's just done on the quiet, and you don't even know. You just hear someone got sick and disappeared.
Right. And why do you think that is?
Well, so you don't run the world without being ruthless.
Right.
And they've got rules and taboos, and it's such a secretive way of ruling the planet, and it is working so well and effectively. All our media and discourse ignores them, and they're there,
right,
pulling the strings.
Right.
I know enough to know that.